Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is October 30th. Oh my God, one day away from Halloween 2024. This is going to be a capital insane episode. We've got Pierre Poilievre scheduled to be in the house. We've got Justin Trudeau scheduled to be in the house. This is going to be one heck of an episode. Lots of talk about a vote of non-confidence happening. Lots of talk about toppling the government. The rebel liberals are ready to vote in favor of a non-confidence should it happen. So we got some videos ready to go here. We're going to take a look, do a bit of a recap as to what is actually going on with Parliament, because it's just craziness, and this could potentially be one of the most historic weeks in Canadian Parliament should all of the stars align. Sorry I'm late, guys. I did actually start the stream. I prepped the stream to be a little bit early, and you're not gonna believe this. When I came downstairs to prep the stream, it smelled a little funky. It smelled a little bit like gas. I told my wife this, and she actually got the fire staff with the firefighters to come by. So right as I was getting ready to like come and sit down and start the stream, the firefighters showed up. And they kicked us out of the house, and they brought down their meters and stuff and checked to see if there was carbon monoxide and a gas leak. And there wasn't. There's no leak, but our furnace is outdated, and I guess it was backfiring, and that caused a bit of a smell. So yeah. Kind of a bit of a scary start to the morning. I was willing to go down with the ship. Gas leak or not, let's go. I mean, I say that in theory, but yeah, kind of scary because the house could have gone boom, but it didn't, and it's not going to. So that's good, but definitely a scary start to the morning, folks. Holy smokes. Yeah. Thank God for the fire crew. I'm not gonna lie, man. They were super quick before my wife was even done being on the phone with them. I guess they were like coming back from another call, and they were somewhat in the area, and I could hear sirens. I was on the phone with a couple local people to try and get numbers for how to replace my furnace like immediately, all right, like this week. Yeah, before she was even done the call, I was still on the phone, and the friggin' firefighter showed up in the driveway. And was like, holy crap, man. So yeah, that was kind of crazy. We put the kids in the truck and just sat in the driveway idling as per the instructions by the fire staff. And I thought that when you have like a gas smell or a gas leak, you're supposed to open the windows, right? Because y'all see in the movies when they turn on a stove and they like jam it there, and then it starts to like fog up a little bit, and then someone lights a match and kaboom. They actually instructed the opposite. They said, don't open a window. If it's not like super potent, then we might be able to trace like where it's coming from should there be one. So it was interesting being told right from professionals to do the opposite of what I thought would happen, but that's from movies. So I'm glad I didn't go with my gut instinct and I listened to the professionals. But shout out to the fire crew, man. That was pretty awesome. And then because they were down in the basement looking around, like I didn't say nothing about, YouTube and stuff, but I guess he saw the plaques and one of them is like, congrats on 100K. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks for making sure that we don't die and keeping us safe. So yeah, off to a great start, folks. Off to a great start. Plus, yesterday I said that I was a little sick. I was drinking some tea because my kids get you sick all the time. You always think that you have a good immune system. And then you have kids and it's like, haha, joke's on you. You don't have a good immune system. So I'm still feeling a little bit iffy today. So if my enthusiasm is a little low, just know that is because my throat is absolutely wrecked and I'm fighting a cold. But good thing I didn't blow up. So I see somebody in the comments said, did you pay your carbon tax? I guess we could joke about it now. But like 30 minutes ago, that wasn't too funny. Getting the kids, rushing them into the driveway, into the truck, starting the truck, turning the heat on. My daughter just woke up because she is sick, and we're on the West Coast, right? So, or in BC, so we're on Pacific Standard Time, so it's still technically morning. And yeah, that joke wasn't too funny 30 minutes ago, but it's funny now. Welcome back to the stream, everybody. Let's let's start off by putting some W's in the chat. Just W's for first responders. Why not? That was pretty clutch of them to have that immediate of a response. And I see that we almost have 2,000 people watching right now. Awesome, phenomenal. Thank you very much. Let's try and get some likes on the stream. It does help push the stream out further, and then just check to see that you are subscribed, because YouTube does this thing where they unsubscribe people against their will. So you may actually be watching these videos, but you may not even be subscribed if you did subscribe a while ago. And then once you are subscribed, there's a little bell icon that shows up. Just do us a favor and click and tap that and make sure it's set to all, so you get push notifications to your phone, your tablet, your computer, whatever it is, so you can be notified of these streams, because it's getting crazy, folks. It's getting crazy with Canadian politics. I see the W's flying in the chat. I appreciate that. And let's get started here with a recap of what happened yesterday, where the Bloc Québécois did a press conference, and they said that they are ready to topple the government. Pretty wild statement. Actually, kind of unheard of by the Bloc. Let's go.
5 weeks after the Bloc Québécois set a deadline for the governing Liberals to support 2 of its bills, or else, leader Yves-François Blanchet says time is up.
We haven't got what we wanted.
Now he says he'll work to bring the government down, but the Bloc would need to team up with other opposition parties, now spelled out plainly in a letter to the Conservatives and NDP. It reads in part, "From now on we will vote against the government during confidence motions, as long as they are in the interests of Quebec."
If there's a vote tomorrow, they might fall tomorrow.
The Conservative House leader says now that the Bloc is game to topple the Liberals, his party will present another confidence motion quickly if the NDP supports it. But the NDP says not so fast.
To be perfectly honest, it shows to me that the Bloc was unable to get the things that they needed for Canadians and for Quebecers. I'm pretty proud of our team. We've been successful at getting some of those really key pieces of legislation through.
The Bloc is demanding the Liberals push forward 2 pieces of legislation, one focused on raising pensions for seniors under the age of 75 and the other exempting supply management from international trade negotiations. But the Liberals say boosting pensions would cost billions of dollars per year, and protecting supply management could harm future trade deals.
And over the past number of weeks, I've had some very good conversations with Mr. Blanchet. We agree as a party that we need to work on supporting vulnerable people and doing more for our seniors.
The government says it's willing to talk, but
we don't want to be limited by what I call indeed an artificial deadline, artificial ultimatum. We don't see why we should stop working together for Quebecers and other Canadians.
Blanchet says his party could still support the Liberals if they deliver on his demands later, but that he's no longer negotiating with the government.
And Rafi, for everyone trying to keep this straight, this isn't the only deadline Trudeau is dealing with this week.
Yeah, some of his own caucus members set a deadline for him to resign as leader. He has not done that, but there is another caucus meeting tomorrow, and a small but growing number of his MPs is asking for a vote on his leadership by secret ballot. It's important to note, though, that there is no mechanism in the Liberal Party to remove a leader that way.
All right, Rafi.
Yeah. So what Trudeau is facing today is the rebel Liberals have said, we want to do a secret ballot. Like a secret Santa. But instead of giving a gift to each other, it's giving a gift to Canadians by voting Justin Trudeau out vis-a-vis their secret ballot. I don't know if that's going to happen. Trudeau is very steadfast on running in the next election, whether that's today, whether that's in a week, a month, or next year. Justin Trudeau wants to stay on as leader. And guys, I never thought in my life I would support Justin Trudeau's decision. Did I slur? Justin Trudeau's decision? I never thought in my life I would support Justin Trudeau's decision, but I think we should applaud him and encourage him to stay on as the Liberal leader, because nobody else has the power to tank a party as far as Justin Trudeau is capable of doing. It's phenomenal. It's the most poetic thing that we've ever seen, that I've ever seen, at least in history. I've never seen somebody that is so bad for a party be so willing. I guess Joe Biden might be like a close comparison, but they literally kicked him out, right? And they're like, yeah, no, we need to try somebody else. They can't do that here in Canada. They can't kick out Justin Trudeau. He has to be willing to leave on his own, which is freaking awesome. So I know it goes against almost all of our natural instincts to support Justin Trudeau with literally anything, but on this decision, we should support him. Oh man, this is great. And then we've got a CTV panel here to go over what the deadlines look like and what we're going to expect moving forward.
So how precarious of a position is the Prime Minister in today? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. Brian Gallant is a former Liberal Premier. Tom, I'll start with you, and let's start with the Bloc. You know, the government still has the NDP to lean on. The Bloc seems pretty clear that they're going to vote against them if there's ever another motion that ever gets voted on in this Parliament again. What do you think the prospect of an earlier election is now that the Bloc has said what they said, or is it the same as it basically was a couple days ago?
I think it's quite clear that we're going to get through at least the Christmas holidays. Maybe the first trip up could be January, more likely February or March around a budget issue. I also think that it was quite amusing to listen to Mr. Blanchet today, the head of the Bloc Québécois, saying that his deadline was here and precisely nothing happened. Nothing happened because, in tone, I'm going to be speaking with the leaders of all of the other opposition parties. That would be him, the Bloc, the Conservatives, who will always vote against the Liberals, and, the NDP. So after saying 22 times that he was going to tear up the agreement every time he's had a chance, Mr. Singh has voted for the Liberals, and he's going to continue doing that because they don't have the money for a campaign right now. They don't necessarily have the candidates ready, and they don't seem to have the platform ready. They were talking a good game against the Bloc today through their now only one remaining Quebec MP, Alexandre Boulay, saying, it shows what lousy negotiators they are. But I think that there was a large sigh of relief when, on the Liberal side, when they realized that the NDP is going to come forward.
Yeah, fundamentally, Rob, does anything change? I mean, we're going to have another discussion, obviously, about the prospect for the Prime Minister's leadership. But in your view, is anything really tangibly different in Parliament right now?
No, not really. Well, I mean, nothing's happening in Parliament. Nothing much is getting done. The business of the country's not proceeding, Bashi, and I think that's a problem that Canadians should be perhaps worrying about a little bit more than they are while these procedural games are being played. Look, I think the Conservatives will come forward with a new motion. I was speaking to some Tories today about that the Bloc could support. It won't mention carbon tax, anything like that in it. But the NDP, to Tom's point, and he knows more about the New Democrats than just about anybody, they're not going to trigger the fall of this government right now because they can't afford an election. So I guess we're back at square one. I was surprised, though, Vashi, that Karina Gould was ruling out prorogation so definitively. I still think that it's something they have in their back pocket if they have to use it.
Yeah, I sort of think that Minister Gould, Rudy, is speaking with the authority that she has on that, and I have no doubt, no reason to disbelieve her. But ultimately, the Prime Minister would make that call. And the reason I asked at the end of the interview is because it feels fairly inevitable, given the paralysis in Parliament. There's no motion that's going to be introduced of confidence or non-confidence. They can't actually introduce any of their own legislation or move it forward. So, what other option do they have? Also, up against the backdrop of what's going on with leadership.
Yeah, look, for the moment, I mean, it's very hard for the Liberal Party of Canada. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see if there's going to be new faces, or maybe they'll do something more than just ask for a secret ballot. Maybe some MPs will decide, I don't know, to become independent to anything, or just to announce again that they won't be running. And I agree with you that at the end of the day, it's the Prime Minister's decision to prorogue. We'll see what happens.
He's not going to prorogue.
He's going to make statement at maybe in November when the Liberals decide to basically table it. But look, for the Bloc Québécois, I think the Bloc Québécois is ready to go into an election. I think in the last, month or so, they've been appointing candidates. I mean, Yves-François Blanchet has been all over the place. Obviously, it's easier for him. He only has to cover Quebec and not the rest of the country. But you can see that he's really targeting some ridings in Quebec. For example, he was in Sherbrooke this weekend. This is former Minister Bibeau's riding, and also next to Pascal Saint-Onge's riding. So I think the Bloc Québécois is ready to go to an election. I think that Tom is 100% correct when it comes to the NDP. the NDP doesn't have the will, doesn't have the money, and especially they're a bit tired now, some of the people, because there was all those provincial election in British Columbia and also in Saskatchewan. So I don't think we're looking at an election in 2024. I think it's going to be at the earliest early 2025.
I don't think so, man. I think that there's just so much anticipation right now, and there's so much momentum. The Bloc, for the first time, has been saying that they're ready for an election. They're ready to go. You've never heard the Bloc say that. They've always said, no, we're going to fight it out. We still have confidence in the Liberals and in Justin Trudeau. And I think you only need, if you have the Bloc and the Conservatives and the Independents, I think you only need 8 of the rebel Liberals to vote in favor of non-confidence for it to go through. And there's like at least 24. So it's looking pretty juicy.
And as all that speculation is happening, Brian, there's also these MPs who are now calling for, and some of them quite openly, a secret ballot to take place tomorrow in caucus or at some point in caucus. What do you think the chances of that happening are?
I would say slim enough. I don't, in terms of it happening tomorrow. I think of it happening. It's possible. It's possible that at one point the caucus chair and or the executive that they have in terms of the sort of regional representation decide on their own to say, hey, let's do a ballot and let's do a secret ballot. And we don't need the prime minister to say whether he would actually act on it or not, but maybe we just do it. I still think that's slim though, because it feels very sort of aggressive, and certainly those that have concerns about Justin Trudeau's leadership have been trying, and not sure they've been incredibly successful, but trying to keep it as subdued and sort of behind the scenes as possible. That certainly hasn't necessarily always worked, but it seems to be what they are striving for. So I'm just not sure that would be the approach that they would take. I don't think it happens tomorrow. I think tomorrow most will want to have another discussion to see what the prime minister has to say based on sort of the reflections lasted 24 hours. But certainly I'm sure he's been reflecting nevertheless since then. And also if they come tomorrow to the meeting and they basically lay out a way in which they think they can have a pathway to form the next government or be able to have a strong campaign, that also might help, and was certainly one of the things that I think some of the caucus members were trying to communicate last week as well. So that happening tomorrow, I don't think so. It happening at one point could very well be the case. But look, I think Freeland acknowledged this and others. There's no formal mechanism. There's no mechanism that really will be binding. So it ultimately still would be the prime minister's choice, even if they did have a secret ballot, and no matter what that percentage was. Does it become painful and does it become difficult? Absolutely. If ever there was a secret ballot in general, that's probably not great. And certainly if he doesn't get anything but high, a pretty solid support, that's difficult, but nevertheless, still not an official mechanism.
So where does that, Tom, leave everything? It feels still pretty messy. I think tomorrow, my understanding is the prime minister will sort of attempt to lay out, or people around him, the path that they do see toward victory in the next election. But do you see that in and of itself quelling the pushback?
No, the pushback's going to continue. The gnawing at Trudeau's ankles is going to continue. Only two ways really to clear the air. One would be through, frankly, an election, and Mr. Trudeau doesn't have to wait to be defeated. It's worth remembering that. He can go see Mary Simon anytime and ask for a writ, and there will be an election, but the Liberals don't appear ready for that right now. The only other way is through prorogation and a resignation, because that's the only way it's going to end. Because the contestation of Mr. Trudeau, fair or unfair, is continuing. It's nice for Chrystia Freeland to plead, well, that's not in our rules, to allow caucus to decide this, but the caucus is front line in any battle, and they're saying, we don't think our general is up for this fight, and we need to change him. And Trudeau's refusing to listen. He'll go through the motions again tomorrow at caucus. That doesn't mean it's going to go over the patch.
I've just got a minute left. I want to give each of you, Rob and Rudy, 30 seconds. Your thoughts on, Rob, I'll start with you, the prospect of a secret ballot.
Look, I think it's great in principle, but it's unlikely to happen. And I think that's probably good for Mr. Trudeau, because I don't know if he would win a secret ballot. I think there's people in his own cabinet who might vote against him if it were secret.
Well, it's interesting because Sean Casey said exactly that. Even last night, Helena Jazzagrudy on this program said that way more people in her estimation would vote against the Prime Minister if they thought it was secret.
Yes, I don't think that's going to happen. And don't forget that Mr. Trudeau has a little card, which is to give 4 MPs a cabinet position because there were 4 ministers who resigned. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, if he plays that card at caucus to say, hey, be nice, otherwise, and some of you maybe will become ministers.
Right. I think Brian mentioned that last week. Still no date for that cabinet shuffle.
Yeah. So I don't agree that they're going to prorogue the government. I mean, Chrystia Freeland has come out and said that that's not on the table. That's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. I think that Justin Trudeau, if there were an election today, I think that he is under the impression that he could win and that he could be prime minister again, because he's just delusional and he's extremely narcissistic, right? And so as long as he keeps that mindset, then I think that we actually have a really good chance. Because the polls, again, I haven't looked at the polls in a while, actually. Let's look at it together. The polls are looking very favorable. You got 217 projected seats for the Conservatives, 59 projected seats for the Liberals. And I think they currently have, what is it, like 118 or 100 and something seats? Like, I don't know how many seats they currently have, but I think it's way more than 59. The Bloc has projected to 44 and the NDP 21. So you could very well see, I mean, the Bloc might be able to overtake for amount of seats than the Liberals, and the NDP. I don't want to say that they would overtake how many seats, but it's certainly possible, right? I think it's just, it's all around not good for Justin Trudeau, whether it's an election now, whether it's an election in the new year, whether it's election in a year from now. I do not see how he's going to win. And it's this running the clock out that I don't like, because Canadians are ready for a change. And it's not just, I hope it's not just my bias in my, I don't want to say echo chamber, but my algorithm that says that. I genuinely think that Canadians are seriously fed up with Justin Trudeau. I mean, you see it all the time. You walk to the grocery store and people are saying, wow, groceries are so expensive. People are always talking about politics the way that, people used to talk about sports or celebrities. It's like the thing to talk about now, the center focus here in Canada, not because anyone wants it to be, just by design, because everybody has to pay attention to politics right now because things are so out of control and they're so bad for Justin Trudeau. I do have another video pulled up here. They're not even in the House of Commons, so we still got some time, folks. We still got some time. This is for Power and Politics. Let's take a look at this one.
A Quebecois threat to topple the Liberal government. Today is October 29th, the deadline the Bloc gave the Liberals to pass 2 of its bills into law. One, to boost pension payments for some seniors. The second, to protect supply management in future trade negotiations. Neither demand was met, so Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet says he is ready to vote non-confidence in the government.
I'm ready for an election. Not only are we ready, but we might be expecting that with enthusiasm. If before they fall, they give us all we have asked under the terms that we have described, we don't have a choice but to take it. But we are not negotiating anything as we speak. We are negotiating with opposition parties in order to have the government be
so that will mean your support is.
The Bloc's House leader sent a letter to his Conservative and NDP counterparts this morning, advising them that the Bloc will begin supporting motions of non-confidence in the House of Commons. Bloc Deputy House Leader Christine Normandin joins me now. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
So your leader says he's ready for an election. He's ready to see the government fall. You're prepared to vote non-confidence. Are you eager to vote non-confidence? Are you itching for an election right now?
Well, when we decided to give the government an ultimatum, we mentioned that if we were only thinking about our own interests, we'd be already toppling the government. But we wanted to give the government a chance to help the seniors and to help the farmers with 2 bills that were already far along the voting process. So we were not thinking about ourselves. But now that the ultimatum has been met, government basically said no to farmers, no to seniors, and we're ready to give the population a chance to say no to the Liberals.
Have they really said no to farmers? Because that is working its way through the Senate. They don't control it the way they did 20 years ago, for example, but they have endorsed it. They voted for it. The supply management demand will be met. It's just not by today. You accept that as a premise?
We can still hope, but during the 5
Okay, so for those that are wondering what it would look like for the vote to go through, I've got this breakdown here. This is phenomenal. This is very, very phenomenal. Thank you for sharing this. Scenario where no confidence motion would be successful. You'd have all the Conservatives, I'll zoom in a little bit, or a lot. The Conservatives would have 119 votes. The Bloc would have 33. Independent would have 4, and you would only need 12 Liberal rebels to vote, and that would give them 168. And then the rest of the Liberals, 144 of them, would vote against it, and then 25 NDP. So this is like abso-freaking-lutely doable. This right here, this is the ideal outcome that people are projecting. And you know, 24 rebel Liberals is the baseline of how many we know. Are 12 of them going to stand up? I think so. If they're already contemplating doing a secret ballot, right, for Justin Trudeau to vote him out, I mean, that shows just how incompetent they are, like how lack of confidence they already have with Justin Trudeau. So will it go the distance, and will they have 12 people stand up and vote? I think so. I think it could happen. I mean, already, Trudeau's support is shattered. He's been made a fool on the national and international stage just from the rebel MPs existing and voicing their opinions that they don't support their boss. That's not ever a good place for a prime minister to be, a sitting government to be.
5 weeks that we gave the government, we mentioned that one of the senators blocking the bill was one of the prime minister's early friend. There could have been some calls made. Some minister did. So we were waiting for the prime minister to do something himself, but he seemed to be rather busy with his own party and trying to survive instead of working along with us in order to have the Senate do the right thing and uphold democracy, because the bill was voted in the House, and it took something like a year and a half before going along further.
No, they did write the Senate to tell them to hurry up, and they were told to mind their own business. So I want to understand the state of play here, because some ministers suggested this morning that conversations are still happening with the Bloc Québécois. Jean-Yves Duclos said this was an artificial ultimatum. What do you make of that? Are you still having conversations with
Well,
the
they can try to test us if they think it is artificial. But we gave them 5 weeks in order to negotiate with us and discuss with us, and in the end, it led to nowhere. So if they present us with something very firm that would meet all our criteria, it would be silly not to look at it, because we still want to help the population we represent. But they had 5 weeks to do so, and that's the reason why now we're telling them, well, we had discussions with you, now we're going to have discussions with the opposition parties, and you'll have a stronger headwind against you. So if they bring something to the table, it will have to be something very, very decent and very close to what we asked for.
Very close to what we asked for, or exactly what you asked for, as Mr. Blanchette said.
Exactly what we asked for, and maybe just in the means of bringing it to the House would be negotiable, but the content will have to be the same.
So you say you're going to start the conversations with the other opposition parties. Have those started? Because Andrew Scheer sent a statement today. He's the House leader for the Conservatives. He's essentially saying the NDP are the last ones standing, propping up Trudeau and subjecting Canadians to more misery, is what he says. He calls them sellouts, saying as they have been doing. And he says if Jagmeet Singh clearly says he will vote to defeat the Liberal government, then the Conservatives will bring another confidence motion at the earliest opportunity. Have you had conversations with the NDP about whether they're ready to bring down this government? It seems to me like they're not. They wouldn't necessarily want to have an election anytime soon.
Well, without having to go in details about what's going to happen behind the curtains, I think we're playing with a rather open book, and we've gave the playbook to the parties today. With regards to the Conservatives, we mentioned that we need a motion that would be clear and simple, not poisoned with carbon tax or something against secularism or language, in order for us to vote with it, because we don't want to go against our values. And with regards to the NDP, I think they'd have to pay a rather high political price if they were to support the government after having been very vocal about tearing up the agreement.
Yeah, I did that public breakup video.
What's happening today is that the government is saying no to farmers, no to seniors, and they'd be the one supporting the government. So it'd be basically if they themselves said no to seniors and farmers, so that would come with a rather high political price, I think. So that will be part of the discussions for sure.
So, I mean, the government would say they're saying yes to farmers because they did vote for it and they're trying to get it through the Senate. And they're saying no to your specific demand for seniors. Did they come to you with any kind of a counter proposal? Because my understanding was the Finance Department was working on a boost to the old age security payments for the 65 to 74 group you're trying to help, but one that wasn't the full $3 billion that you were looking for, because they disagree with the idea that seniors with really high incomes should get more money. Did they come to you with a counter proposal?
Well, if we're where we are today, is because they haven't come with something that we would have been acceptable to us. And one of the thing is, if they came with a counter proposal that would mean more delays, it was a reason to say no just because of that. It's a government that was already on life support, and we gave them the opportunity to live a bit longer, but not forever neither. So if they, for example, decided to come with a different bill, it would still have had to go through the whole process of the voting committees and everything. It would just have been buying time on the side of the Liberals, and we know that they're good at buying time. So that's the reason we gave the 5 weeks, and that's the reason we say we want the bill that we presented that's already gone through the process, and that's basically fixing the discrimination that you guys created yourself between two categories of seniors.
Well, your demand was...
So it's kind of a race right now between a vote of no-confidence being pushed forward and the Liberals approving the demands by the Bloc. There is no reason to believe at this current point that the Bloc, the Liberals will give the Bloc what they want. They haven't done it. They haven't indicated that they will. They've actually been against giving them what they want. So at this point, it's looking like, you know, the Bloc isn't going to get what they want. They haven't received it by the deadline, but they have come out and said that if the government does give them their demands in full, you know, moving forward before a vote of non-confidence comes through, then they obviously will have to consider it. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And so right now we're stuck in a race between what gets pushed forward, a vote of non-confidence or the Bloc getting what they want. Sorry, my wife just brought me some food here. Look at that. Oh, you guys can't see. Look at that. Some eggs, some hash browns. Ooh. Ooh.
Was essentially that they buy time by coming with the money. But I just want to make sure I'm clear. Did they come with a counter proposal? But it fell short. But they did put something on the table that they were willing to do, that it wasn't enough?
Well, I wouldn't go into what could have been said behind the curtains, but we were clear on what our requests were, and they were not met. So that's that is clear enough. And we mentioned we won't agree on something different than what we asked for. So whether they decided to send something new on the table, make a proposal, if it was not what we asked for, that could be managed in a quick period of time, we would have said no anyways.
Okay, so, but if they come with something, even though it's past the deadline, you would vote to support it and not necessarily rush to a non-confidence, because Mr. Blanchet said that if they give us everything we want, we'll say yes, essentially. That's where
We'll at least look at it. So,
at it,
yeah,
right.
yeah, because we'd be...
People say W-wife.
Give an opportunity to
Thanks,
help the
guys.
people we represent.
So right now, there is no vote, a confidence motion or non-confidence vote on the agenda that I have seen in Parliament, because there is what amounts to a filibuster as this debate on privilege continues over the disclosure of documents to Parliament.
QP hasn't started
It
yet.
needs to be an unpolluted and clear.
Okay, folks, this is a very important piece right now. Okay, this right here. So as it stands, according to the blockage that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have put forward, remember that Hail Mary that we were laughing about a couple of weeks ago that basically like blocked all government motions? Well, that essentially blocks a vote of non-confidence. That's crazy. That's crazy. So I don't know what Pierre is cooking up. I don't know if it's going to be, like a swift motion between removing this blockage and then immediately putting on, pushing forward a vote of non-confidence. I'm not sure, but let's listen, because this is crazy right now.
Motion. Now, I think it was the first non-confidence vote was simply this House has no confidence in the government. If that comes back, do you vote yes this time?
We will, and we've mentioned it rather clearly today. So it's a kind of giving the Conservatives the playbook to how we could help us defeat the government. So it's if it's in a really clear, easy, straightforward motion, it's easier for us to vote for it, whether instead of something that's polluted, and it might be easier as well for the NDP. That's something that they have to consider. If it's rather blunt and clear, instead of going against the environment, or it will make it easier for all opposition parties to have discussions.
Okay, so right now there's obviously pressure on the Conservatives to end their filibuster to get this motion on the table, should they choose to go this route, and then pressure on Jagmeet Singh and the NDP.
So we don't really know where Jagmeet Singh stands until right now. He's actually currently, as I speak, talking to reporters. So we're going to quickly hop over there because we're on the topic of Jagmeet, and we're going to listen to what he has to say. I have it muted.
Opening, I'll look forward to your questions. New Democrats believe, I believe, that you should be able to have a good job. And that job should be able to let you find a home that you can afford and have a fridge full of groceries. And if you need health care, it should be there for you when you need it, wherever you live, and you shouldn't have to put it on your credit card. Sadly, that is not how things are right now. People are feeling really squeezed. Squeezed when they try to buy their groceries, can't find a place to call home. And healthcare more and more is causing you to pay out of pocket, or it's just simply you have to wait forever to get it. And the biggest threat to our vision for a better future are conservative cuts. And now the Bloc wants to help King Cut himself, Pierre Poilievre, cut the things that you need. Cut your pensions, cut healthcare, cut the dental care program. We want more seniors to be able to take care of their teeth. They want to cut it. They want to cut pharmacare. We want free birth control across this country. So I will not let Pierre Poilievre, the King Cut, or the Bloc call the shots. I don't want a Liberal government. I don't want Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. There will be an election, and when that election comes, people will have an important choice. And so folks out there, if you've been watching the Liberals focus on themselves instead of your challenges, your problems, and you're losing hope, don't give up. Don't give up hope. We are here for you. We are fighting for you. We are fighting to make sure you get the help and relief you need. We want to give hope to people. We want relief for people. We've got your back.
So the beautiful part about where Jagmeet is currently positioned is that anything he says actually doesn't even matter, because with the Bloc, who is ready to topple the government and is ready for an election today, yesterday, tomorrow, they're ready. The Bloc has said, the leader has said, let's go, we're ready, right? Pierre Poilievre just has to remove this filibuster. He has to remove this freeze that he's put on the government, right? I don't know how he's going to do it, but he wouldn't be doing it for this long, even after the Bloc has said we're ready for an election, unless he's cooking something up. So King Pierre will save us. Absolutely, right? Jagmeet Singh, it doesn't matter if he votes against a non-confidence, as long as you have 11 I think it's 11 rebel MPs, rebel liberals that stand up, the independents and the conservatives in the bloc. They all voted together. Boom. You have a successful vote of non-confidence, ipso de facto, triggering a federal election. So Jagmeet Singh, you are no longer needed.
I'll do that in French, and then I'll look forward to your questions.
We're going to skip through this. No longer needed, man. He's no longer needed. It's phenomenal. He's got no more leverage.
Des coupures Monsieur le parlementaire, peut-être couper. Donc, je décide qu'on va avoir un choix et vous êtes en espoir de se battre.
The block deadline has passed, and the Liberals need NDP support to keep going if they don't want to go to an election. Do you want anything in exchange for your support for the Liberals?
Well, we made it really clear what we're focused on. We're seeing people right now that are telling us it is impossible to afford groceries and all their bills. They can't find housing that's affordable. And they're worried about our healthcare system becoming more and more privatized, where you got to spend money on your credit card to get care. That's wrong. So we're focused on making sure we solve these problems. So we'll look at any bill that comes forward, any motion that comes forward, and if it's going to help people with these difficult times, we'll look at that.
Vous dites que vous ne laisserez pas les conservateurs et le Bloc décider quand on va aller en élection. Faut-il donc déduire que vous n'appuierez
Okay, we're going to skip through that.
Et je ne peux pas service dont programme qui est maintenant on ne va pas on va avoir
To bring down the government. Does that mean that you will not work with the Bloc and Conservatives to bring down the government?
We know people are hurting right now. People are struggling right now. They're having a hard time affording their groceries. They're having a hard time affording a place to call home. And seniors are just getting help with their teeth. I'm not going to let Pierre Poilievre, the king cut himself, and the Bloc decide when to cut these things that people need. I'm not going to let them cut the things that people need. So no, I'm not going to play their games.
So, to end the privilege debate.
What? Did he just walk out?
To end the privilege debate.
What? They weren't done. Hold on a second.
Cut these things that people need. I'm not going to let them cut the things that people need. So no, I'm not going to play their games.
So, to end the privilege debate.
What? What the heck is that? What the hell just happened? He just walked out. They took his microphone and like, that's it. That's it. You're done. Tout fini. That's freaking weird, man. Holy smokes. I don't know. We thought once upon a time we needed Jagmeet to successfully pull off a vote of non-confidence, but where it stands right now, we don't, and that's a very dangerous position for Jagmeet. It's not advantageous for Jagmeet. It shows that he serves no use. There's nothing he brings to the table to actually remove Justin Trudeau. So he says that he's against Trudeau. He says he doesn't want Trudeau being a government. Look, people aren't stupid. If you're an NDP supporter, chances are you also don't like Justin Trudeau. Chances are you want an election because you think maybe your guy Jagmeet can win. So why wouldn't you want an election right now? Jagmeet isn't going to be more popular than he is today. In a year from now, should it go the distance to the next scheduled federal election, the best time we have for an election is right now. The best chance that all parties have is right now, essentially. Call an election. Call an election. The House is still not ready the feed is still not open yet. So we're going to continue this Power and Politics interview. But don't worry, folks. Don't worry, folks. Question period is going to begin momentarily.
To decide exactly what they want to do. What is your sense right now? Do you think an election between now and the Christmas holidays is likely, or do you think this does spill into 2025 at this point in time?
I would not bet on an early election, but if it were to go that way, it would have to start with the Conservatives ending the filibuster on their own motion. So if we want to start having a real legislative agenda in the House, it will start with them.
Right.
So, and we made that clear. Please stop filibustering so we can start having discussions on your eventual opposition day motion and a non-confidence vote.
Okay, so there will be another, it's not opposition, I think it's called opposition day. This is what happens when Pierre Poilievre triggered this movement of blocking government, right, where they can't put forward any motions. I think he gets 5 opposition days or something of the sorts. And I think they've already gone through 2 or 3 of them. And so Karina Gould is actually the one to schedule it. So when Karina Gould schedules it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe somebody can fact check me down in the comments. But from my understanding, should she schedule it again, then Pierre Poilievre would, I think, essentially remove the veil of this this kind of freeze that he's put on the government. I'm not sure how. I don't even know if anyone really knows how other than the politicians. And then they'd be able to put forward motions again and trigger a vote of non-confidence. And that can happen at any moment, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I don't know what the process is to do it, but I'm pretty sure it could happen at any moment.
You say you wouldn't bet on an early election, I mean this fall, because like the spring would be early. We're not making it to October of next year.
Early.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, all right, well.
Nobody thinks we're making it till October of next year. Not a single person. Not a single person. And I did see somebody down in the live chat say, what percentage do you think we're going to see an early election? I'm like 90% confident we're going to see an early election. Whether that's before Christmas or whether that's, I'm like 75% sure we're going to see it before Christmas. I'm very, very optimistic because that's what I would like to see. And then in the new year, I mean, if it doesn't happen before Christmas, it's likely to happen early New Year, right? But I do not think that we're going to have Justin Trudeau as a prime minister next October. I think that we're like going to get an early election. It's just a matter of when. And it's extremely exhausting. I get it. It's extremely exhausting. We wake up and we're like, is today the day? Is today the day? I don't want to be thinking about this all the time. I'm sure you don't want to be thinking about this all the time. We just want to live our lives in peace. We just want to be able to afford things, go on vacation, right? You know, go out and have a you know, wings and beer and not worry about money. Like, I get it, man. It's freaking exhausting to think about this all the time.
Well, that's Bloc Deputy House Leader Christine Normandin. Thank you so much for coming in with the update. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right, let's bring in the Tuesday Power Panel.
Okay. Yeah. So looks like they're singing "O Canada" in the House right now. So we're going to get that ready to go. If you guys haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to smash the like button on the stream. Got a lot of people in here. We got over 5,000 people. We got over 5,000 people in the live stream right now, which is pretty phenomenal. Pretty freaking phenomenal. They're singing "O Canada" right now, folks. I just got it muted. Let's see what we got here. Clayton LeBlanc with a 2 saying, let's see some results today. Travis Becker with a 279, no message attached. Joe Uber saying, is Trudeau going to have a hot dog in his throat today? And is it going to be Indian? Find out soon. Wow. That's quite the thing to say, Joe. Matthew Galligan with a 2. Here's hoping to a vote of no confidence. Hemen Ali with the 2, no message attached. Cryptic Century the 6.99. Stocked up on some rum if we succeed today. It's out. Put up or shut up, Block.
Today it's my honor to pay tribute to Hanshi Scott Hogarth, an 11-time world champion, a black belt in 7 martial arts disciplines.
Republic of Noobs with a 2 euros.
Inductee of our local Milton Sports Hall of Fame.
Trudeau
a beloved father and
to
husband,
prison, Carlis.
Scott passed away.
Jordan English with a 5. Still Jagmeet. You're going to prop them up. You're losing more and more votes every time you speak. I agree. Jagmeet's not doing himself any justice.
For decades, they've not only taught martial arts, but also instilled values of respect,
Bree
and perseverance in countless students.
279. Politicians doing what they want with no consequences.
Infectious enthusiasm and commitment to the well-being of others.
I think that's the most annoying part
minds of those he worked with, both in
for everybody
and out in the community. And as we remember Scott today, let us celebrate his love of
and Matthew Galligan with the 10 saying, we need an election now. I'm tired of all the semantics and games being played in Parliament.
Will be dearly missed, but
it is all taxing.
Scott, we'll always give it 100%
unintended.
For you, my friend.
I am beyond fed up. I think we're all there with you, Matthew.
The honourable member from Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Hooligan with a 2 saying,
government's failed drug strategy.
If there was an election today, Trudeau has got your vote.
Consequences of their failure. This is what happens when you speak truth to the regressive left.
I mean, joke's on you.
On protecting their policies.
You paid money to say that.
But are harmful in practice. They vilify anyone challenging their radical ideology. This includes parents concerned about their children's safety, seniors tired of thefts and break-ins, business owners fed up with staff being assaulted. Mr. Speaker, we were called NIMBYs, or not in my backyards, when the truth is our yards are full. They're full of crime, they're full of needles, and they're full of drugs. But we persevered in our fight for safer communities, and the Ontario government acted to protect children by closing drug sites within 200 meters of schools and daycares. Ontario's taken the first step. It's time for this government to finish the job and to do so now, because we can all read the polls. We know they're going to lose the next election, so leave with some dignity. Do the right thing. Listen to experts and reform safe supply before even more Canadians are hurt. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear. Well,
The honourable member from Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, 1 in 15 Canadians will be diagnosed with lung cancer. It affects thousands of Canadian families, including my own. It's the most commonly diagnosed cancer in Canada, and one of the least survivable, with only a 22% 5-year survival rate. Many Canadians will be surprised to know that lung cancer kills more Canadians than prostate cancer, breast cancer, and colon cancer combined. It's usually undetectable until its final stages. Stigma remains because of the association between lung cancer and smoking, which may explain discrepancies in research and treatment funding compared to other cancers. While smoking is a factor in 70% of lung cancer cases, nearly 30% of patients have never smoked. If you have lungs, you can get lung cancer. I ask Canadians to treat all cancer patients with compassion and with best hopes for new, life-prolonging therapies to add years of survival for our loved ones.
Can't wait for the day that we just solve cancer.
Order, please.
The honourable member from Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recently celebrated National Persons Day when we remember the famous 5 prominent Canadian suffragettes who advocated for the rights of women and children during the 1880s and 90s. Their efforts culminated with the landmark case of Edwards versus Canada on October 18, 1929, when the eligibility of women to sit in the Senate chambers here in Canada was recognized. Emily Murphy, Henrietta Edwards, Nellie McClung, Louise McKenney, and Irene Parlby have been immortalized in marble outside the current Senate chambers for us to see daily. I am honored to rise in this chamber today alongside many women I am proud to call colleagues as we recognize this special day and the women who came before us on this journey.
The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to pay tribute to Mr. Francois
Just smash that breakfast.
a member of the Oka High School staff who recently
2 eggs and
opted
hash
for a
browns.
phased
Boom.
retirement after a busy career. For almost 40 years, Mr. Gervais left his mark on hundreds of young people. Some of them still talk today about his initiatives, such as setting up a fair trade store, creating a student environmental committee, creating a humanitarian action committee, notably after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, and
Oh yeah, folks.
with the Kanastaki School.
I forgot to mention, we are 400 signatures away from hitting 10,000 on the petition. So if you haven't yet already, see the pinned comment of the live chat as well as in the description, or just go to stopmutingthemic.ca and then click on sign now at the top, and it'll bring you to the petition. And you'll see that we are very, very close to getting 10,000 signatures, right? 95, 98. We're 400 away from 10,000, folks. I think we can get there. I think we can get there.
Is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year, and I'd like to highlight the important work it has accomplished for farmers in the Laurentians and the Outaouais, including in my riding. The UPA Outaouais Laurentide represents 2,259 farms and their 3,410 producers. They are responsible for nearly 10% of all farm businesses in Quebec. And I'd like to thank them, led by President Stéphane Allary, a dairy and field crop producer in Luxville, to have celebrated their 60th anniversary in my riding. And the banquet will be held this evening. So it's with great pleasure and pride that I welcome them to my riding. Happy 60th anniversary and long live UPA Outaouais Laurentide.
Member from Durham.
Merci.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the police officers who serve our communities for upholding the law and protecting our families. For all of this, you deserve our gratitude.
Policing is an honorable profession. Every day, officers put their own safety at risk to keep our country safe. My community of Durham is home to police who work in Durham Region, Toronto, York Region, Peterborough, and Kawartha Lakes Police Services, as well as the RCMP. We thank you. I encourage all young Canadians with a heart for public service to consider a career in policing, where some of the best and brightest in our country protect and serve. Thank you.
The honourable member from Mississauga-Malton.
Mr. Speaker, I am thrilled to share that an all-girls team from Darcel Avenue Senior Public School located in Malton has won first place at the World Robot Olympiad in Italy.
Hear, hear.
Known as the Forest Guardians, Jutuk, Melanie, Chitra, and Rabunya created the BlazeBot, designed to sense wildfires in their early stages and alert local fire stations before it's too late. Under the coaching of their French immersion teacher, Priya Parekh, and the support of their librarian, Lydia Marcelli, the fantastic Forest Guardians made history as the first ever Canadian team to take top spot at this competition.
Hear, hear.
Speaker, when I look at their faces, I know with deep conviction that their futures will help determine no less than the destiny that this nation will fulfill. It's clear to me.
Trev saying, I want Pierre as my 24th Prime Minister now. Don't we all?
In joining me to congratulate them
Thanks, Trev.
and celebrate their significant.
Jim Brown saying,
Thank you.
Trudeau, Jagmeet, Ford, Freeland for prison.
The honourable member from Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, and even our smallest communities in the Northwest Territories,
Thomas Watt with the 5 American.
addiction
Holy
issues
smokes.
have reached a boiling point. Our community
I just lost
members,
it.
many dealing with trauma, are facing predatory dealers who sell to anyone to ensure that.
Hello from Texas. I can't wait for Prime Minister
It doesn't matter if
Pierre
you live in
Poilievre and
the
President Trump building a free market economic power partnership.
communities
God willing.
all sizes as they struggle with ensuring they are safe.
Poilievre and Trump, man, they would fix North America, that's for sure.
Government of Canada must continue to work with the government of Northwest Territories, community and Indigenous governments to create and strengthen tools to disrupt and combat drug trade and provide support and aftercare options that work for Northerners. To protect our residents.
It's kind of cool that we got some Americans in here and people from around the world.
To end the drug crisis that is harming our
Brian Moore saying,
and our community.
Pierre for PM makes Canada great again.
The honourable member from Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On September 27th, my father, Jason Felix Couric, unexpectedly and suddenly passed away at age 54. My dad was a good man. He chose life, he always worked hard, and gave generously even when he didn't have much to give. He loved farming, a work that creates a bond that few will understand. He built deep friendships from the field to Parliament Hill. He lived with humility and grace, showing us that faith in Jesus is shown by love.
You guys ready for this today?
But while kind, he also never backed down. On the hockey ice or elsewhere, he stood for what was right and the values that built this country. He was a devoted husband to Mom for 35 years. He was a loving father, and he adopted his kids-in-law like his own, and he was a seriously proud papa. Our family and community lost a truly good man. Thank you to everyone for the support during these difficult weeks, both in consort and here. But in the midst of our grief, my hope is that everyone can remember my dad, Jay, by living with the strength, generosity, and faith that he showed us. I love you, Dad, and until we meet again.
Sorry for your loss. That's tough.
The honourable member from Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians across this country are deeply concerned by
Yeah, I'm going to talk over you.
lack of
Joe Uber with the 10 saying Trudeau choking on Indian hot dog again.
and interference in
Yo,
Canada.
Joe,
Yesterday,
first of all,
public safety
calm down. Second of all, go study for your LSATs.
Conservative members had the
And Kit with the 199.
with senior
I ain't going to read that.
but chose to focus on everything other than the actions
I ain't going to read that. You want me to read that out loud? Send 50.
security of Canadians. At this
Jim Smith with 699 saying, let's go call an election.
House by the
Man, I'd be so stoked to vote federally before Christmas.
of Canadians. He had failed to hold a press conference and delegated a statement to his MPs reflecting disturbing level of disengagement. He remains without security clearance, hindering his ability to gain a complete understanding of national security issues. Mr. Speaker, Canadians
Poor man's poet with the 10 American. American. Been down here rooting for Canada and watching your channel for a while.
After
Is good work you've been doing. Keep it up, bud.
Housing.
That's how I imagine you talk. Thank you.
$8 billion of taxpayer money to housing programs that have built zero homes, like the failed Housing Accelerator Fund. The only thing it's accelerated is tent encampments, rent, and headlines like this one. Priced out of rental market, Midland senior lives in a shed. Common sense Conservatives have a plan. We will cut the GST on all new builds under $1 million. This will save Canadians $40,000 on homes of $800,000 value. Did you know in Ontario, government taxes account for 30% of housing prices? Wow. Enough with taxing people into poverty and hopelessness. Our compassionate common sense plan will stop the Liberals from forcing people to put up tents as housing. We will axe the tax and we will start building the homes.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, they are not worth the cost of their failed housing programs that has only doubled the cost of rent, mortgage, and down payments. Housing starts have dropped across the country, and the Liberals' own forecasts say it's only going to get worse in the years to come. That's why the response to our bold, common-sense Conservative plan to axe the GST on new homes sold was so well received this week. Leuna says it's good policy. The Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness says this is smart. The Greater Ottawa Home Builders and Build GTA both say that our tax cut instantly makes a significant improvement in housing affordability. It's because on an $800,000 new house, it
$13.99.
$40,000.
And that would be the best, the very best Christmas ever.
Mortgage payments, and it's going to.
You know it's my birthday on Christmas?
Extra new homes in this country each year. Mr. Speaker, instead of funding photo ops, more bureaucracy, and less home building, it's time to bring home more.
And Kate with the 199 saying Trump 2024. Let's go.
The honourable member from Surrey Centre.
Yesterday, the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security heard from top security and law enforcement officials on the extent of the Indian government's interference in Canada, including serious criminal activities, extortion, and the murders of Canadian citizens. Canadians from across the country are shaken and scared of this blatant attack on our democracy and on their safety. Despite their concerning evidence, Canadians still have not heard directly from the leader of the Conservative Party on this issue. His silence has been noted in this House, and now it is being.
Yeah, I'll say that one for free.
Canadian citizens have died at the hands of a foreign government. What will it take for the leader of the Conservative Party to give this issue the seriousness that it deserves?
Yes,
All right, this might be the last one here before we start. Joe Uber saying, correction, I just got confirmation. Trudeau's choking on Indian Vienna sausage.
Like triple negative
For crying out loud,
breast
Joe.
cancer, or
You could get me in trouble.
TNBC, which is more frequently diagnosed in patients under 50.
Those diagnosed with TNBC represent anywhere from 10 to 20% of the overall breast cancer population, and it is more likely to affect Black
Gold
and Hispanic
Wing
women.
Ben
Most people
with a
have never heard of
$27.99.
TNBC, and some Canadians are not even
Thanks for
aware
what you do and your dedication. Go Pierre, go.
cancer.
Soon Canada's
to
Prime Minister.
improve awareness
Ayo.
of triple-negative breast cancer and all breast cancers, and ensure that there is more equitable access to
I love the enthusiasm.
treatments. More
Thanks, Ben.
education, earlier screening, and earlier detection means greater chance of survival. In closing, I recognize friends.
King Solo Wings saying hi from California, aka Little Canada.
My wonderful neighbor,
Please God let
and retired Captain Paula.
Trudeau be removed. Trump, a new conservative Canadian, will be amazing. California.
Order, please. The honourable member for, Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères.
Oh, we're about to begin, folks.
I'd like to pay tribute to.
I'm not going to be reading off any super chats while we're in the main show.
During the first bloc election in 1993.
So I'll read them off as much as I can before Pierre starts,
National Assembly of
and then after
2005,
the debate, we're going to get back into it. Should there be any more?
Public Security from 2012 to 2014. After a brief departure from politics in 2018, he returned to
Jay with the 10 saying, "Small town of thanks for all that you do. Awesome to know the petition is making an impact."
Who I'm talking
Dude,
about, the
House Speaker hasn't muted
his inexhaustible
the mic
energy, hard work, and total devotion to his constituents.
since the petition
Has always been
has
held in
begun.
high esteem by his colleagues. He took everyone by surprise when he announced that he would not seek
And
re-election.
Tia saying, "Make North America great again."
We will no doubt miss him
Maple
on the
MAGA.
Hill, but we're delighted to know that he'll remain a proud supporter of the Quebec independence cause. Stéphane, congratulations on your 30th birthday, and thank you for all you've done.
Thanks, Ann Kit with the 199. Trump 2024.
Celebrating his 30 years of public service. Stéphane Bergeron.
The Conservatives didn't know what the hell they were clapping. So the House Speaker said, someone celebrating 30 years of public service, Stéphane Bergeron, and then the Conservatives get up and start clapping. That's funny. I believe I saw Trudeau at the bottom left.
Alors, s'il vous plaît.
We're going to begin momentarily.
Before we continue to the next member, I'd like to remind members, if they could, if they have cellular telephones, we heard it ringing during the last statement by a member.
Because they're watching House of Canada, bud.
That their telephones should be...
What's up, Conservatives?
Well, it's in the House. The honourable member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands.
Let's get some W's down, in the chat
One guy
for the Conservatives.
Prime Minister in power.
They're watching.
Of the NDP
They got their phones out.
who scammed voters right before a by-election. Remember the leader of the NDP's big stunt when he told Canadians he ripped up his coalition deal with the Liberals? In fact, the leader of the NDP said, quote, "The Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people," end quote. But the NDP leader is all talk and is selling out to keep his Prime Minister in power. The leader of the NDP voted for the carbon tax 24 times, the same one that sends Canadians to food banks in record numbers with over 2 million visits in a single month. The NDP leader supports the inflationary deficits, voting to fund corruption like this Prime Minister's $60 million Arrive scam. Every day that this Prime Minister remains in power is because of the leader of the NDP. It's time for a carbon tax election so Canadians can fire this costly and corrupt NDP.
Yeah. Look at the enthusiasm.
The honourable member.
Eric with the 2 saying, LFG, let's go.
Recently, I spoke in this House about the growth of radical far-right movements. They've organized disinformation campaigns, impacted how some
Milkshake. Pierre and Trump, the leaders we deserve in North America.
Have led to some politicians not acting in the best interests of Canadians. As our Prime Minister recently said, we've seen that anti-vax messages during the convoy, during the pandemic, were amplified by Russian propaganda, especially the media of the right, spreading pro-Putin propaganda, and that today is currently funding bloggers,
a different opinion.
Personalities on the right, such as Tucker Carlson, in order to amplify messages that are destabilizing democracy. What this tells us is that some of these far-right movements and opinion leaders are not only harming Canada, but they're doing so at the bidding of Vladimir Putin. Some of these far-right movements are agents of foreign influence. So I wonder why the leader of the opposition will not get his security clearance and
he looks like belly button lint.
Actions we need to stop the influence.
That's what it looks like when you wear a cotton shirt and all that lint gathers in your belly button at the end of the day and you pull it out. That's what he looks like. Oral questions. Guest shows. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Pierre, to be next Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, Canada made a promise to everyone. It's very simple. Work hard, get a big paycheck, and buy food and affordable housing in safe communities, no matter where you're from. But this Canadian promise, like everything else, is broken after 9 years of this Prime Minister who's doubled the cost of housing. This week, I proposed eliminating the GST on the purchase of a new home. Everyone is in agreement it's going to reduce the cost of a new home. Will the Prime Minister accept my common sense idea? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The problem, Mr. Speaker, the fundamental problem for the opposition leader is that all the challenges he sees, he's got one solution for them: cutting services, programs, and investments for Canadians. Even when he tries to put forward solutions for housing, he wants to cut. He cuts thousands, millions, billions of dollars in building more housing.
In wasteful spending.
For a cut of $9 billion that we're sending to the government of Quebec to accelerate housing starts across Quebec. We need investments to build new homes, not cuts and austerity. That's all that the Conservative Party is offering us. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. It's not surprising that the Prime Minister is against cutting GST on housing because he doubled the cost. He did it by breaking the immigration system, by printing $750 billion in inflationary funding, by funding bureaucracies that prevent construction, and by putting new taxes on housing. He's trying to build more bureaucracy in Ottawa, bureaucracy that doesn't lead to any new housing. So, once again, will he go back on 9 years of failure, accept our common sense idea, cut GST on new homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party's plan is to cut hundreds of millions of dollars for Quebec, to cut investments in housing across the country. That's not what Canadians need. We are investing in housing. We are investing to build more opportunities across the country for people, and all he's offering is billions of dollars in cuts in services and programs and services that Canadians need.
Here we go, Pierre.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canada makes everyone a promise. It's a very simple deal. You work hard, you get decent food, and a good home in a safe neighborhood. Doesn't matter where you come from, you work hard, that's what you get. But that promise, like everything else, is broken after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister. He's doubled housing costs. That's why I came forward with a now widely celebrated idea to axe the GST sales tax on new homes, saving up to $50,000 on the cost of a new home. Will he accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the homes?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing that the Conservative leader is offering at a time where Canadians need support is cuts. He's proposing to cut billions of dollars of investments in housing across the country to increase densification,
cut liberal jobs,
red tape, to accelerate the construction of homes and apartments that Canadians need. he's offering cuts. He's offering austerity. He's saying everything is broken, and then he's thinking that cuts to services and programs and investments is what's going to help Canadians. That's not responsible leadership, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He proposes to cut bureaucracy and taxes, Mr. Speaker. Let's axe the sales tax on new homes, saving up to 50 grand on a new home. That's a savings of...
How is cutting GST not helping Canadians?
...per year in lower mortgage payments. By contrast, the Prime Minister offers a multi-billion-dollar housing bureaucracy in Ottawa that his own housing minister admits doesn't build homes. Wow. So why won't he listen to his own housing minister and accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the homes?
There you go. He's got him pinned in a corner.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the most fundamental responsibilities of any Canadian Prime Minister is the safety of Canadians. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition...
Paying less in tax is somehow not safe for Canadians.
...responsibility to keep his own MPs safe from foreign interference. So I have asked the security services to figure out a way to give some information to the Leader of the Opposition so that he can actually fulfill his responsibility of protecting Canadians, including those within his own caucus. It would be easier if he got a security clearance, but I've asked them to give him some information nonetheless.
This guy is crazy.
Can I ask the Honourable Member from Selkirk into Eastmain, please, not to take the microphone. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I know that the Prime Minister has told his caucus he's not sleeping. He's pulling his hair out with stress because of his caucus revolting against him. And now he's spreading tin pot conspiracy theories rather than answering the question. 80% of Canadians now believe that home ownership is only for the very rich after he doubled the cost of housing in 9 years. I came forward with a common sense plan to axe the GST on new homes, saving up to 50 grand on a new home. Why won't he accept my plan to axe the tax and build the home?
There you go. Which is literally the best way to help Canadians right now. One of the best.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He just put forward a plan to cut billions of dollars of investment in housing across the country. But, Mr. Speaker, in regards to issues of national security, it is extraordinarily difficult to see a leader of the Conservative Party refuse to get the necessary security briefings that would allow him to protect his own MPs and indeed protect our Canadian democracy. So I have asked the security services to figure out a way to share some information, perhaps even some names, with the leader of the Conservative Party so that he can take action and protect his members.
Pierre wants to release the names. Idiot.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. How to lose at Politics 101. 80% of voters are asking the Prime Minister to increase old age security for seniors aged 65 to 74. Every party here voted in favour of it, even his. Thanks to the Bloc Québécois, the Prime Minister had a unique opportunity to be fair to seniors, please 80% of people, and stay in power. He could have scored a triple, Mr. Speaker. Instead, he chose to abandon seniors, to say no to 80% of voters, and to buy himself an election. 0 for 3, Mr. Speaker. Does he understand now why nobody wants him around anymore?
Not even his own caucus.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Our government is investing in seniors. We increased the guaranteed income supplement by 10%. We are helping older seniors, those aged 75 and up, with an increase in old age security. And we delivered dental care. Over 1 million seniors across the country have seen a major difference thanks to that program. Dental care, by the way, that the Bloc decided to vote against. I would suggest that if they're taking suggestions on how to be popular in politics, that they deliver dental care services to seniors who need it. Maybe that would be a good thing that they could do instead of being like the Conservatives and voting against it. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Prime Minister could have helped 1 million Quebec seniors with the help of the Bloc. Instead, he abandoned them to go back to his ex who kicked him out, the NDP. You know, he went back, his tail between his legs, to a party that's so disconnected from Quebec that its only Quebec MP is desperately looking for a way out and into the administration of the city of Montreal. I feel sorry for Montreal. The Prime Minister could have chosen 1 million Quebecers. Instead, he chose 25 MPs, 96% of whom are from outside of Quebec. Does he understand?
Trudeau's not even going to win his own riding either. It's so funny.
Trusts him anymore.
No one in the Papineau riding is going to vote him back in. Look at the Conservatives. They're standing up too. Oh man, this is exciting. Look at him. He wants to mute the mic, but he's not going to.
Mr. Speaker, we can understand that when the Bloc has the support of the Conservative Party, Quebecers are going to be very concerned. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that we are here to invest in seniors. We were there with dental care, where the Bloc and the Conservative Party voted against it. We were there to increase the guaranteed income supplement by 10% for the most vulnerable seniors. That's one of the very first things that we did as a government, and the Bloc and the Conservatives voted against it. We were there to increase old age security for seniors 75 and up because they have more costs, and the Bloc voted against that as well.
The honourable member from Burnaby South.
Let's talk about women.
Oh, here we go, tough guy.
In Alberta, Daniel Smith, the Premier, is privatizing healthcare and giving it to Covenant. Covenant refuses to give abortions. That is clearly a violation of the Canada Health Act. Does the Prime Minister agree? Yes or no?
Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are the government that has stood up for women's rights unequivocally across this country, including pulling back transfers to provinces where abortion services and reproductive health wasn't being delivered. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward with more ways to protect women's rights. Just yesterday, we presented a Ways and Means motion that's going to mean that pregnancy crisis centres will have to disclose whether or not they're actually offering the full suite of reproductive services and rights to women, or
that's quite progressive.
Going to leave women without support and without choices at an extremely delicate time.
That's right.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
It's her body, her choice, not her body, Conservative Party's choice.
The Conservatives have revealed a new plan for a cut. This time, they want to cut in the Affordable Housing Accelerator Fund. And now, the Bloc wants to support them. The Bloc had some power, but they weren't able
it's never women
to resolve the housing
debating this either, right? It's always the men. It's kind of funny.
Affordable housing, not infighting. Will the Liberals finally wake up? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to follow up on the first part of the question from my honourable colleague on the fact that the Conservative Party continues to attack women's rights. Now, I certainly have questions about the Conservative MPs from Quebec within the Conservative Party of Canada who have sat on their hands while their colleagues attack women as rights, the anti-choice members of the Conservative Party. We are seeing women's rights under attack everywhere, and the Conservative Party is encouraging them with the MPs they've elected. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois and the leader of the Bloc Québécois has literally nothing, delivered nothing for Quebecers, nothing for seniors, nothing for farmers. But despite that, he voted almost 200 times to keep this Prime Minister in power. He voted for $500 million in inflationary bureaucratic spending, $500 million in deficit spending. At the same time, Quebecers are suffering from the cost of housing, which has doubled. Will the Prime Minister accept to call an election so that Quebecers can support my plan to get rid of GST on new homes?
Yeah. Which is more than Trudeau's done.
Just before I recognize the Prime Minister, I would just like to ask all members, please, to put your phones on silence. It's good for the interpreters. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I said it in English, I'll repeat it in French. We know that one of the fundamental responsibilities of everyone in this House is to protect the safety, security, and well-being of Canadians. However, with his completely unexplainable decision to not get his security clearance, the Conservative leader is putting Canadians at risk, including members of his own party. That's why I have asked our security services to share as much information as possible with the Conservative leader so that he can better protect his MPs, despite the fact that he's still refusing, for reasons that we don't know, to get his security clearance to know everything.
It doesn't even matter if he gets it. You have corrupt Liberals sitting right there.
This Prime Minister doubled housing costs, doubled the debt, doubled gun crime, and now doubled food bank use, that the NDP would be pulling its support. After all, the leader said the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people, and yet there he is, still in power. He doesn't even have the confidence of his own Liberal MPs, but he seems to still have the confidence of the sellout NDP leader. So, will the costly carbon tax coalition stand up in front of Canadians and let people vote in a carbon tax election for change in the future?
There you go. Put some W's down for Pierre.
I ask members to be very judicious in their...
If you guys haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys
members
to smash the like button and subscribe.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, watchers of Canadian politics will remember that last year, the Conservative Party got up pretty much every time they could to talk about national security, to talk about it in a partisan way, but to talk about it every chance they could get. And now that we have offered the Leader of the Opposition a security clearance so that he can be fully informed on national security, all that they've been able to say is political attacks and asking questions of other parties. Why has the Leader of the Opposition chosen to not get a security clearance when the safety of his own MPs is in the balance?
Mary Ng is right there next to him, 2 seats down. She's standing up, compromised by Chinese foreign interference. This was mentioned the other day. What's a security clearance going to do?
Mr. Speaker, it looks like the Prime Minister is worried about his personal political security as his MPs are revolting and trying to push him out of the job. And so he's desperately trying to change the channel on the questions that I've asked. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think that's unfair, though. Those MPs helped this Prime Minister double housing costs, double the debt, double gun crime, double food bank use. Why won't he turn around and look them in the eye and say they should stand up for their own record and his, face the music in a carbon tax election?
Wow. He's on fire, man. Put some W's for Pierre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no responsibility by the government is more important than keeping Canadians safe. That's why our security services every single day take actions and work hard to keep Canadians safe. So it is inexplicable to our security services that they cannot let the leader of the Conservative Party know about the threats facing him, his party, and our democracy, because he refuses to get a security clearance. So I have asked those security agencies to look at ways to share at least some information with him and perhaps some names so that he can protect
Mary Ng is like 3 seats down, man.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if he wants to release the names, he legally can do it now on the floor of the House.
There you go. Release the names. Look at the Conservatives all standing up together. Those are the people I want fighting for this country. Those are the people that are going to put the best interests of Canadians first.
Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, now we're getting something. He's actually engaging on the issue of national security. Unfortunately,
The threat can't be that big if Mary Ng's sitting right next to him.
the agents, the officers, the sources that are putting their lives lives at risk to keep Canadians safe. There is a reason we do not disclose classified information in places where our adversaries are watching and paying attention. But we can release many names to him and much information to him if he only gets his security clearance. So he will be able to keep his own team members safe from foreign interference, Mr. Speaker.
Mary Ng, right here where my mouse is compromised by Chinese interference. And she keeps looking down at her phone in shame.
The opposition.
He won't release the names because he knows that he and his party are compromised. And he won't answer my question because right now, 24 of his MPs are rebelling against him. They're asking for a secret ballot to fire him, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, as I say, that is not fair. Every one of those MPs helped this Prime Minister create 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario. Every one of them voted to quadruple the carbon tax. They can't just throw him out. He can't just run away. They need to face the music. Why won't we have a carbon tax election now?
Wow. Pierre's good at this. He's good at politicking.
For well over a year in this House, just about every question from the Leader of the Opposition was about national security, was about foreign interference. And we called a commission of inquiry. We've offered security clearances to all leaders. And indeed, the leader of the Green Party, the NDP, and the Bloc have all done the responsible thing and gotten their security clearances and gotten top-secret briefings from our security services. The leader of the Conservative Party chooses to play the pettiest form of politics instead of stepping up on his responsibilities as leader, protecting Canadians, protecting his MPs, protecting our institutions.
Mary Ng is on Weibo right now, Chinese Facebook.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, security and safety depends on housing. In Quebec, the cost of housing has doubled. In Montreal, the cost of rent has tripled after 9 years of this Prime Minister who's building bureaucracy, who's printing money, who's broken the immigration system, and who has applied taxes on corrupt businesses. And that's why I've proposed a common sense idea to cut the GST on housing. The Prime Minister says that he'd rather put money into bureaucracy. I want to cut taxes for those who are buying a home. Can we have an election on the question of eliminating the GST on housing? Yes or no?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are extremely perplexed right now because we know very well that the Conservatives, apparently, according to themselves, are interested in law and order and crime and national security and defense. It's in everything that they put out in the elections. But when it comes time where there's a real threat to Canadians' safety and even to the safety of his own MPs, the Conservative leader refuses to get his security clearance. He refuses to take his responsibilities seriously. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Every party here voted to protect supply management with C-282. Every party stood with farmers to call on the Senate to stop blocking this bill. Everyone is telling Senators Beam and Harder to get to work. It's time today for the Prime Minister to take his responsibilities seriously, to be responsible for our farmers. He appointed the senators who are blocking this bill, and it's his fault that we're stuck with them. Will he finally ask these two Royal Highnesses to pass Bill C-282 immediately?
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have always been very clear that we will protect supply management. That's what we did against the Trump administration. That's what we will continue to do. by making sure that we keep our promises to always protect supply management in any free trade negotiations that we undertake in the coming years. We are defending that right now, and we expect the Senate to pass this bill so that we can make sure that the future of supply management will always be protected for Canadians. We completely agree with the Bloc Québécois on this. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé.
Pierre's coming back
nice
up.
Words,
Don't worry,
Mr.
folks.
Speaker, but not only did he appoint these senators, the senators that are blocking C-282, but one of the two of them is even a good buddy of his. Peter Harder brags about it on his Senate webpage. He says that the Prime Minister, when he was in the opposition, called him several times for advice and help. And then 6 months later, he got a Senate seat. The Prime Minister in person picked up the phone and called him. If the Prime Minister can call him for advice, can he not ring him up to tell him to do his job? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the independence and the important work that the Senate does. The Senate studies bills, makes recommendations, and over the years, we've appointed exceptional senators who are doing responsible and diligent work in that place. At the same time, we always expect the senators to take into account the will and the decisions of this House. And the House voted unanimously to protect supply management, as we've always committed to do, protecting supply management in any trade agreement and free trade negotiations. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There we go.
9 years after this Prime Minister promised to end chronic homelessness, it's gone up by 38%. But happily, the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness says that my Conservative plan to eliminate the GST on the purchase of a new home is, quote, intelligent. So if the Prime Minister is really interested in ending the housing crisis that he created, will he listen to the people who are trying to end homelessness and accept my common sense plan and eliminate the GST on new homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. To fight homelessness, I would recommend that the Conservative leader call his friends, the Conservative premiers of Saskatchewan and Ontario, to accept and tell them to accept the money that we're putting on the table to fight homelessness and end the encampments that are making people so vulnerable. But it's interesting, Mr. Speaker, to see to what extent the Conservative leader refuses to answer a very simple question. Why is he refusing to get
release the names
security clearance to protect our institutions, our democracy, and his own colleagues in the Conservative Party?
His MP, like 3 people next to him, is compromised.
And Builders Association stated that my common sense Conservative plan to axe the sales tax on new homes under $1 million is, and I quote, the most significant housing announcement made in the past 2 decades. Removing the GST shows leadership to cut crippling levels of taxation on new housing, puts money directly back in the pockets of Canadians while combating the housing crisis. Why won't the Prime Minister listen to the people who build homes so that we can reverse the crisis he caused? Why don't we axe the sales tax on new homes today?
Yeah, that would tremendously help millions of Canadians.
You know what shows leadership, Mr. Speaker? Taking seriously the
security
safety
clearance
of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the RCMP has concluded that the government of India was involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil, in extortion, in violence, in drive-by shootings, in home invasions, and the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada refuses to get his security clearance so that he can keep Canadians safe, can even keep his fellow MPs safe. That's why I've asked our security services to find a way to share some information with him so maybe he can do at least a part of his job.
Release the names right now on the House floor.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We'd like to see him do any of his job after 9 years, Mr. Speaker, like reversing the housing price increase he caused. Let me quote British Columbia's Victoria Residential Builders Association said, quote, reducing government costs, including GST, would have a significant impact on housing affordability. The Conservative leader's suggestion is welcome news and long overdue if the federal government wants to get serious about housing affordability for Canadians. This common sense plan will stimulate 30,000 new extra homes built every year. So will he accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the homes?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Conservatives, you always need to look at the fine print underneath the easy slogans. And the fine print on this one is cutting billions of dollars of investments in housing right across the country at a time where we need to be building more housing more quickly. Cuts are not the solution. But if he wants to take something seriously, perhaps he should take seriously the issue of national security, because he refuses, for inexplicable, political, childish, who knows what reasons, refuses to get his security clearance that will allow him to keep his own MPs safe, to keep Canadians safe, to keep our democracy and its institutions safe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years after promising he'd get rid of chronic homelessness, it's actually risen by 38%. Now there are 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario. It's almost as bad as it is in NDP-governed British Columbia. But there is good news. The Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness heard about my common sense plan to axe the GST on housing, and their founder said, this is smart. Mr. Speaker, those who are fighting to end homelessness, like my solution of axing the sales tax on new homes, will he accept my plan to axe the tax and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, like I said, if he wants to be helpful on the issue against homeless, maybe he could give a call to his fellow Conservatives, the premiers of Saskatchewan and Ontario, to agree to accept the money we're putting on the table that they could match to support people living in encampments and fight homelessness effectively on the ground. But he won't do that. And what else he won't do is get his security clearance. So
what the hell does that have to do with homelessness?
His fellow MPs protect Canadians in this democracy. He refuses to get the security clearance necessary to keep Canadians safe. That's not the kind of leadership Canadians have.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Systemic anti-black discrimination is widespread in the public service. In fact, the Treasury Board Secretariat found that the Canadian Human Rights Commission discriminated against black employees. Now, instead of supporting these workers, right now the Liberal government is fighting these workers in court. So will the Prime Minister stop fighting black employees in court and settle the Thompson class action lawsuit?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in extending the UN decade of support for people of African descent, this government has done more to recognize systemic bias, systemic discrimination, unconscious bias, and anti-black racism than any other. But there is always more to do, Mr. Speaker, which is why we have stepped up with the Black Entrepreneurship Strategy that is responding to the needs by black communities to access more capital to create the prosperity that they so need to be able to create for their communities, why we're continuing to invest in anti-black racism initiatives, continuing to stand with the black community. There's always more to do, and we will do it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Abortion is health care. 1 in 3 people who can get pregnant will need abortion care in their lifetime. But for close to a decade, this Liberal government failed to remove barriers, letting Conservative premiers cut access to abortion. And this Conservative leader secretly voted 5 times to take away the right to choose. Canadians want to see access to reproductive health care protected. Why have the Liberals not enforced the Canada Health Act to protect equal access to health care, including abortion?
The Right Honourable.
Always straight to the divisive.
My daughter's in the gallery today, so I want her to hear me as long as everyone else does. This government is unequivocally pro-choice. We will always defend a woman's right to choose.
Did he say his daughter was in the gallery?
So we've actually pulled back funding from provinces that haven't been delivering access to abortion in their jurisdictions, why we will continue to enforce the Canada Health Act. But, Mr. Speaker, it is the Conservative Party, with its dangerous attack on women's rights, that should have people worried right across the country. At a time where we've seen Roe versus Wade overturned, attacks on women's rights, the Conservative leader can't stand up and defend women's rights.
Pierre should apologize to Trudeau's daughter for brutally beating Trudeau.
All members, please not make mention to people in the galleries. It is against the rules of this place.
You can't do that during question period.
Alors, s'il vous plaît.
Order, please.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for St. Laurent. Mr. Speaker, our government has always protected women's right to choose. But the anti-choice lobby of the caucus and the Conservative caucus and the leader are controlling it. And some of these anti-choice organizations that support the Conservatives use deceptive tactics to deter women from accessing a complete array of reproductive care. Can the Prime Minister tell Canadians about the measures taken by our government to protect women from these centres? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for St. Laurent for her diligent work on defending women's right. We have heard too many women tell us about how they experienced shame, and that's unacceptable. That's why yesterday we presented a bill to force these centres to be more transparent. Otherwise, they risk losing their status as a charitable organization. Unlike the Conservative leader, the Liberals will always defend women's right to choose and their right to access the health care they need, including the entire array of reproductive care services. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says that he opposes taking the GST off of new homes. He wants to keep the taxes high and keep housing prices rising. His solution is to fund more bureaucracy. And what has that done? Well, that's doubled housing costs. It's caused a 39% increase in homelessness rates. So I've got an idea. Why don't we let Canadians decide? If he won't have a carbon tax election, why don't we have a housing tax election and allow Canadians to decide on more bureaucracy through him or axing the sales tax through me?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians watching today will see that the Leader of the Opposition is refusing to stand up and take a strong position in protecting women's rights unequivocally in this House. He can't because his MPs won't let him. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, he's refusing to protect his MPs by not getting the security clearance necessary to get fully informed on threats to our democracy from foreign powers. Why won't he get the security clearance necessary to take international interference seriously?
That's right.
Just release the names and let the traitors be known.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, his tinfoil hat conspiracy theories and misinformation will not distract. We stand up for women's rights every day on this side. It has been our 20-year-long policy in the Conservative Party that there will be no restrictions on women's reproductive choices or on abortion. He knows that, but he doesn't want to discuss the issues that we do disagree on, which are this. Housing costs have doubled under him. His solution is to spend billions more on bureaucracy that drives them up further. We want to help women and men own a home, so will he vote for a housing tax election?
There you go. I love the enthusiasm, man. Over an hour into it, and it was still jumping up. He's thinking about muting the mic. But he won't.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be interested to see him do a very simple thing in his next answer. switch the order of the statements he just made. Anytime he talks about unequivocally standing up for women's rights in this House, crickets from the Conservative backbench. That is because consistently members of the Conservative Party of Canada move forward measures that restrict and restrain women's rights, that limit women's rights to full suite of reproductive services. The Conservative Party members do not stand up for women's rights, so nor does the...
What the hell is he talking about?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of women's rights, just yesterday, his former parliamentary secretary came out publicly, Selina Cesar-Chavan, and said that she was abused, intimidated, and mistreated by this Prime Minister, that he used her for his fake feminist agenda.
Wow.
He treated her like garbage, Mr. Speaker. It is terrible the way he exercises hypocrisy. Housing hypocrisy by doubling costs, tax hypocrisy by raising people's prices while flying around the world. Yep. How about putting an end to the hypocrisy and calling a carbon tax elected?
He's good at politicking. I'll give him that.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What is fascinating, Mr. Speaker, is the spectacle of watching...
I would ask the honourable members to not speak when they are not recognized by the chair. I insist. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is fascinating to see the lengths to which the Conservative leader will go to avoid the issue of national security, to avoid the issue of safety of Canadians, to avoid talking about issues of foreign interference, because he cannot answer why he refuses to take the security clearance that would allow him to access top secret information focused on keeping his members safe, keeping our democracy safe. We know that foreign governments interfered in the last leadership campaigns in the Conservative Party. He wants nothing to do.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, Prime Minister is coming unglued. He's flailing around, spreading conspiracy theories and demonstrable disinformation in order to distract from the fact that not only did he double housing costs, double gun crime, and double food bank use, but now 24 of his own MPs want to fire him. Mm-hmm. We can't go on like this with a Prime Minister who admits he can't even sleep at night because he is so in knots. Will he let his 24 dissident MPs vote freely on a non-confidence motion so we can have a carbon tax?
There you go. He's unfit to be Prime Minister.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm confused about what happened. The Conservative Party used to be out defense of Canada, but they dropped the defense spending to below 1% last time they were in office. They're supposed to be about law and order, but they stand against stronger measures on gun control. And they're supposed to be about national security, and the leader of the Conservative Party refuses to get the necessary security briefings to keep our democracy safe and to distinguish from the conspiracy theories that float around what is fact and what is fiction. Why won't he trust our national security agencies?
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. As of today, advance requests for aid will be allowed in Quebec. Finally,
this is nuts.
Diagnosed with a serious disease leading to incapacity will be able to submit a request to their doctors. But these doctors are still worried about the lack of legal protection because of this government's continued refusal to amend the criminal code. It's a lack of courage and a dangerous game the Liberals are playing. It harms patients and doctors who are worried about being sued. Will the Prime Minister show some compassion and amend the criminal code without delay as proposed by C390? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, medical assistance in dying is a deeply personal and sensitive choice that involves individuals and their families in a difficult decision. The potential expansion of eligibility in terms of these advance requests is a major decision. Therefore, we are launching a national conversation, and we will not take any legal steps in this bill yet because we want to cooperate with Quebec and with all provinces and territories in order to attentively assess the next steps. Thank you. The Honourable Member from Oakland. It's not time to talk, it's time to act, because I might remind the Prime Minister that his government is a minority and could fall at any moment. Now, some of these consultations have already been done. And the fact that they're not going to pursue the government of Quebec doesn't change anything. We know that the next government will be conservative, and it's useless to claim the contrary. The far-right conservative wing is opposed to MAID, so why is the Prime Minister putting the fate of these patients in the hands of the Conservatives? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I fully agree with my colleague from the Bloc that the Conservatives represent a major risk for the freedoms of Canadians across the country. But we must not make any decisions that are too hasty on such an issue. We must ensure the protection of the most vulnerable Canadians and Quebecers, and we must ensure that people can make a free and informed decision. That is why we need to take the time necessary to work with the provinces and territories to evaluate the different issues and ensure that Canadians make the right choice. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Years of releasing violent gun criminals and leaving our borders open to smugglers. This Prime Minister has presided over a 116% increase in gun violence. And yet he was out boasting about it on Twitter. The Toronto Police Union, the largest police union in Canada, said his words were out of touch. They were offensive to victims and brave officers. So, given that his approach has doubled gun crime, why won't he accept our common sense plan to lock up the gun criminals, scan the cans, and stop the crime?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when the Conservative Party's plan on guns is to unfreeze the market on handguns and legalize assault-style weapons across this country, nobody can take them seriously on the issue of guns. But they are talking about national security now and safety, which begs the question, why will the leader of the Conservative Party not get the necessary security briefings, clearance to get the necessary security briefings to show Canadians that he's capable of taking national security seriously?
Just release the names, man.
And ask members to not carry on loud conversations, and particularly the Honourable Member from Waterloo.
Pierre doesn't have anything to hide.
While she's not being recognized. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Unfreeze. Mr. Speaker, it has never been easier for a criminal to get a handgun. In addition to which, that he's allowed it to be legal today to own a handgun. He has brought in an amnesty on his own gun ban, re-legalizing all the guns that he said he was going to ban. And 4 years after he held that big press conference with a scary-looking black gun on the front of his podium, a made-in-Hollywood-style cartoon, gun crime is actually up dramatically. So why doesn't he actually ban the criminals, secure the borders, and stop the crime?
Yeah. It's not law-abiding gun owners you got to worry about. It's criminals.
Mr. Speaker, slogans furnished to him by the gun lobby don't keep Canadians safe. Canadians know that significant common sense gun control measures, which we have put forward, are what is making a difference in keeping Canadians safe, and we will continue to do that. Right. But we are now at least talking about security issues, so Canadians may be wondering, why is it that the leader of the Conservative Party continues to refuse to get the appropriate clearances from our national security agencies so he can take the issue of foreign interference, including against his own party, seriously?
Mary Ng, who's owned by China, sits 3 seats down from him.
Again, as I just mentioned,
what has been done?
All members, please. Not
this was said a few days ago.
Stations across the way, including the member from Dufferin Caledon. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there's been an increase in of 800% with regard to
ridiculous.
Since the Prime Minister has allowed these hard drug consumption sites. People who live in that community are terrified because of the chaos that this Prime Minister has sown. Under Section 56(1) of CDSA to close these drug consumption sites. Will he do so?
He's probably going to say something about security clearance.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the opioid crisis and drug addiction is a scourge that profoundly impacts Canadians across this country. Our approach is science-based, it's fact-based, and also we use compassion, and we try to work with the organizations on the ground, with the provinces and the municipalities and experts. We will continue to take this approach. We will not criminalize people who have mental health problems, and that is going to save lives, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, our government has always been clear that ensuring a woman's freedom of choice should be protected. But many Canadians are rightfully worried that a Conservative government would not protect this fundamental right. It is alarming that women's rights and freedoms are under attack in the Conservative Party. Can the Prime Minister tell us how our Liberal government will continue to protect a woman's right to make decisions about her own body?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Humber River Black Creek is right. Yesterday, we announced that we're holding pregnancy crisis centres accountable for preventing women from making informed choices. While we're protecting women's freedom of choice, the Conservative Party is trying to roll it back. Any party leader that allows their MPs to introduce anti-choice legislation, actively recruits anti-choice candidates, and takes their money cannot say that they are pro-choice. Right. It's time the Conservative Party ends their filibuster and allows this House to vote on reproductive rights. Right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years, 9 million Canadians live in food insecurity, according to Food Banks Canada. 9 million, that's 23% of our population. 23%, twice as high as the rate in the United States. Food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than in the States, and that gap has happened at the same time as the implementation of the carbon tax and all the government greed. Now he wants to quadruple the carbon tax and starve even more people. Why not have a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote to axe the tax?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada carbon rebate puts more money back in the pockets of the middle class and people working hard to join it. The Parliamentary Budget Officer recognized that 8 out of 10 Canadians are better off with the Canada carbon rebate than the price on pollution costs them in their jurisdictions. So the Leader of the Opposition is proposing to take away money from vulnerable families across this country at a time they need it. Terrible. What the Leader of the Opposition is also doing is refusing to get the security clearance necessary to keep Canadians safe by getting the briefings from our security agencies that talk about foreign interference.
Right. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr.
Speaker, if the carbon tax made people better off, we wouldn't see a doubling of food bank use under this Prime Minister. You can't blame the rest of the world. Food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than in the United States of America.
Oh my God.
Period. And that gap
I didn't know that.
grew as the carbon tax came in year after year over the last half decade. Turns out if you tax the farmers who make the food, the truckers who ship the food, the grocers who sell the food, you tax all who buy the food. So if he really wants to quadruple that tax, why not have a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide?
The Right Honourable
It's disgusting how expensive our food is.
The carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10.
No, it doesn't.
Right across the
No one's fallen for that.
economists, scientists, and the parliamentary budget officer who've declared that. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we know the Leader of the Opposition won't listen to experts. He won't even listen to our national security experts who are trying to let him know about threats to his own MPs. I have asked them to figure out a way to share at least some information with him, despite the fact that he has refused to get a security clearance, because the responsibility of Prime Minister is to protect all Canadians, including, apparently, Conservative MPs.
Just release the names, dude.
Position. Mr. Speaker, more division to distract. You know, here we have 2 million people lining up at food banks. 1/4 of Canadians live in food insecurity, a level twice as high as in the United States. Food prices rising 36% faster in Canada than in the U.S., coinciding with the carbon tax coming into force. Now he wants to quadruple it. 56% of food banks say they're literally rationing food rationing in a first world country, Mr. Speaker. Before he starves more people, why can't we have a carbon tax election and axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if he actually cared about food insecurity, instead of just wanting to politicize and instrumentalize it, he would have supported our national school food program. But he does not. What he also will not do is take seriously his responsibility as a party leader in this House, as someone who desperately wants to become Prime Minister, to actually get the security
that was pretty cringe.
and therefore the briefings necessary to protect our democracy, our institutions, and his team members from the threats of foreign interference. That, Mr. Speaker, is absolutely irresponsible.
That's right.
The Honourable Member from Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Public Safety Committee heard from top national security and law enforcement officials on Indian interference in Canada. Despite the concerning evidence, the Conservative leader refuses to speak directly on this issue, choosing instead to hide behind his MPs. The government has been clear that all responsible leaders need security clearances so they can make responsible decisions to protect Canadians. Can the Prime Minister explain why the Conservative leader should get his security clearance, get briefed, and protect our democracy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Kitchener-Conestoga for his hard work. Canadians shouldn't be surprised that the Conservative leader refuses to call out Indian foreign interference. He's refused to get briefed up, to get the security clearance necessary, to get the understanding that our national security agencies want him to have to better be able to both protect his own MPs, to protect our institutions, and to protect Canadians. Let me put it in phrases that perhaps the Leader of the Opposition will eventually understand. Get the clearance, get the briefings, protect Canadians.
He's trying to show off for his daughter up in the gallery.
The Honourable Member from North Island, Powell River.
Canadians who serve in the military deserve our gratitude and support.
Yeah.
But we've learned that for at least 19 years, this Liberal government and the former Conservative government overcharged veterans and their families for long-term care beds. Again, veterans and their families have to fight this government tooth and nail to get what they are due. Canadians need to know who did what and when. Will the Prime Minister immediately end this long-term care gouging?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Veterans Affairs has asked her officials to investigate this matter further. We are committed to supporting our veterans, have been since day one. That's why we invested over $11 billion in new services and supports for veterans since 2016, including reopening the 9 veteran service centers that the Harper government shuttered, rehiring 1,000 staff that the Harper government had fired, and we're continuing to work to improve the services and benefits and supports for veterans and for their families.
The honourable member from Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wants to talk about national security. Let's do it. On New Year's Eve, Canadians will be ushering in the Hogue Commission's final report on foreign interference. But meanwhile, media continue to provide insight as to who are the infamous 11 parliamentarians in the pocket of China. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister have trouble sitting at the cabinet table when he must wittingly know that at least one of his ministers is not working in the service of Canada, or is he entirely witless?
Yo, that changed the mood. That changed the mood of the whole session.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that was an absolutely disgraceful display of irreverence and unseriousness in a place that deserves a serious contemplation of issues of national security. But it doesn't surprise me he's choosing to sit with the Conservative Party of Canada because their leader won't even get the necessary clearance to get the necessary briefing to keep Canadians safe. It's irresponsible, Mr. Speaker.
What's irresponsible is that Mary Ng is sitting right next to you instead of being in prison for having ties to Chinese foreign interference, which was mentioned the other day by Kevin Vong. Look at Mary Ng's right there, drinking her water. Probably right from China, too. Probably not even Canadian water.
Order. Order. Affaire courante.
Routine proceedings. Tabling of documents. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers.
Mary Ng was yelling at him, shame on you, shame on you. Get out of here, traitor.
The Honourable
She's
Member for Vaughan.
pissed. She's pissed.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 34-1, I have the honour to present to the House, in both official languages, the following reports of the Canada-Europe Parliamentary Association respecting its participation at the second part of the 2024...
Trev saying let's put a petition to put Trudeau in jail.
In Strasbourg, France, from April 15th...
Travis, Maple Syrup MAGA 2024.
Parliamentary Association respecting its participation at the third part of the 2024 ordinary session of the Parliamentary Assembly.
Gold saying imagine
Strasbourg, France,
Trump and poilievre coalition in North America.
2024, and a revised copy...
In Canada should get rid of the monarchy.
Association respecting its participation at the Atlantic Brook German-Canadian Conference in Berlin, Germany.
Trudeau should be called dishonorable.
2024.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, 2 signed copies in French and 2 signed copies in English of each individual report.
Lola, thanks for the lives daily. Yeah, my pleasure. I love streaming question period.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I also I wanted to get the leave if required in order to go back to tabling of documents. We kind of skipped through it relatively quickly there.
All those opposed...
Thomas with 5 saying...
Say nay.
Trudeau's toilet plan, expensive, wasteful government Ponzi scheme.
The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay.
Rachel saying Trudeau has to be one of the best examples of someone who talks a lot and says nothing. Yeah. He gaslights. He talks in circles. He's a broken record.
I'm afraid I have...
Jay saying strategic move on Pierre's part to wait out JT on the security access. Yeah.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
He's going to be forced to release the names at some point.
It was kind of skipped over really quick because of the voices inside the chamber at the end of question period. It's just to table some petitions. That's all it is.
The responses to petitions.
Anurag with 10 saying Trudeau's government allowed immigration to go nuts without properly validating before PR or work permits. I am an immigrant living in Canada for 18 years and can say that Canada is not the same.
The motion will please say nay.
The system
will please say nay.
The way to get into Canada 18 years ago versus now is so vastly
We do
different.
not have unanimous consent.
So we're waiting to see if the vote is going to be today. We're going to wait and see what's going on here.
Comité, the honourable member from Humber River Black Creek.
Jordan with saying 7K watching. Yeah, we peaked at 7K. That was pretty awesome.
Of the Standing Committee on International Labour, referring to Canadian supply chains and the issue of forced labour. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member, l'honorable député de Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Conis and Jay, welcome to the membership program. Guys, if you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to drop a like on the stream. We're close to 3,000 likes. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. It's tax deductible and it helps fight climate change for all I care.
Order 109, the committee asked the government to table an overall...
Predictable Jesse, Trudeau's a broken record. A lot of the same talking points today from him. Adam Knight with the 10 gifted subs. Thank you, Adam.
First reading of Senate public bills.
And then Insan Diddy said, thanks for the gift, Adam.
Mr. Bouleris, seconded by Mr. Julian, moves
3 flavors with the $13.99.
Standing Committee on Human
Keep up the great work, Jasper. Can't wait until this crap prick is gone. Trudeau makes me sick. Makes us all sick.
Tabled on October 6th, 2023, be concurred in. Debate. The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie.
Jason Ferguson with 5 saying Trudeau sing out
Thank
and
you,
Pierre
Mr.
for
Speaker.
PM. Axe the tax and make
First
Canada great again.
I will be sharing my time with the member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Jordan English saying it's great to hear Pierre bring up the mandate that's been in place for 20 years and not messing with women's reproductive rights. Big W. Yeah. Jim Smith with a $27.99.
Quebecers. The housing crisis.
Pierre for PM. Trudeau is unfit.
This is a crisis throughout.
We agree with you, Jim.
It will have very serious effects. This is a fundamental right, the right to house yourself and to have a roof over your head.
A new liberal
For several years, with my team in Rosemont-La Petite Patrie,
rebel came forward.
Tradition,
Wow.
which is every year to rent out Bobien Cinema
That's happening right now, too.
and to get the rights for a documentary screening and to invite people to come watch the documentary for free.
Nah, no one's watching your
To
documentary.
have a chance to speak with the artist.
Matthew saying liberals are like a broken record. Dibs on dabs on dibs on dabs.
We had an opportunity.
Thank you, Doug.
to watch
And Jammer.
an interesting documentary.
Oh, I recognize Jammer from X.
Slip, which is a documentary.
Jordan English with a 5. I hate hearing the liberals talk about guns. They literally have no. They don't have a clue. That's the craziest
the
part.
Great importance of the definancialization of real estate. The documentary makers, Ms. Bérard and Mr. Vachon, were in the room, and we were able to speak with them. There were also representatives
Andre talking
of
about
various
MAID,
organizations in the region.
terminal and incurable
neighborhood.
pain. Why are they so obsessed with putting the Reaper on welfare?
We saw that people were very interested in this. 2 entire rooms were filled. 500 people came to watch the documentary. And they also wanted to talk about
What about the anti-gun lobby?
over the last few decades, that there has been a real drift towards speculation. And the fact that investment funds and trusts are increasingly involved in buying.
My mom gets a kick out of you. She likes your channel. Thanks. Konisma.
And this ends up leading
Say hi to your mom
to
for me.
in prices.
That's very nice.
It hurts people. There are various models for solutions.
The poor man's poet. I want you to meet your goal.
Look at what happened with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, we hit 2 super chat goals today. It's a new feature.
Sanders
That's pretty
is
crazy.
a socialist.
Folks, it does not look like there's going to be a vote today, despite all the talk of it happening. That's kind of where we are right now. I don't know if they can even put forward a vote of no confidence while the Conservative Party has basically frozen Parliament. It's kind of strange. It's kind of strange. I don't understand Pierre's tactic. He's on the inside. So obviously if he's still frozen government and they're unable to table new motions, then he knows something that we don't. But again, the bloc is ready to go. The bloc is ready to freaking go. They are ready for an election. So are the Conservatives. And there's enough rebel Liberals that have come forward and that are ready to vote against Justin Trudeau. But I think Pierre's just waiting. I think Pierre is waiting for those rebels to be just so much more angry with him to the point where it's go time and it's undeniable and it will 100% happen. So if that's Pierre's tactic, then, he's the man with the plan, and we just got to wait for him to execute said plan. But for those that haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to go and click the link in the description or go to stopmutingthemic.ca and sign this petition to stop Greg Fergus from muting the mic. We're at 9,700 signatures. We are super, super close to 10,000 signatures, which is like a massive milestone for petitions. We're already like 63rd or 64th most popular petition in Canadian history. So this is being taken very, very seriously. But ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to end the stream. Poor man's poet said, $10 US super chat goal, brother. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, we reached 2 super chat goals. It's a new feature. I just did it for fun. I didn't realize that we'd actually blast through the first goal and then the second goal. But I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the thumbs up. I appreciate everybody tuning in here. It's disappointing. I am under the impression every day that they say they're going to do a vote on confidence. I have the same information as everybody else. A vote's going to happen if they say a vote's going to happen, and a vote has not happened yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. So enjoy the rest of your day. Peace and love. Make sure you head over to stopmutingthemic.ca and sign that petition if you haven't yet already. Make sure you check your junk folder, and then also make your way to the other channel, Mr. Sunshine, and stay tuned for some videos later today. Peace and love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.